I'm Thomas Mills with Politics NC. Welcome to another installment of Restless Natives, and we have Anderson Clayton, chair of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and Travis Fain, former reporter, political reporter, and political analyst extraordinaire of North Carolina politics.
It's hard to tell people what I do now, Thomas, which is why I get to
Right.
charge so much. So thank you for that.
Travis Fain, former reporter and now making lots of money.
Well,
Anyhow, I've been on vacation for a while, so I'm going to kick this off. I'm going to let Anderson start. I know a lot has probably happened with the governor's race around here, and Anderson's probably paid as much attention to that as anybody. Her party is pretty much center stage nationally in this U.S. Senate race. So, Anderson, catch us up a little bit. What is going on with that race?
I mean, it's still in the early stages of it, right? When you're seeing both of the campaigns gear up and get going. But I think that what we've seen from Governor Cooper already is a strong start across the state. We're going to have Senator Mark Kelly is going to be in North Carolina over Labor Day weekend campaigning with them across the state. And we're also going to make sure that we're hitting every corner of it. So they're going to be in Raleigh and Asheville and Charlotte and making sure that we're crisscrossing the Tar Heel state. And meanwhile, Michael Watley's having campaign fundraisers in Washington, D.C., which I mean has been where he's represented for the last 2 years and more than that when you think about his past political career. So seems like everything's on track. Governor Cooper's in the state of North Carolina doing what he needs to do to talk to people, and Michael Watley is rubbing elbows with political lobbyists.
And being protected by the National Guard.
Yeah, invading D.C. right now.
Right.
Still has yet to also resign as RNC chair, which I'm hoping to the Republicans listening to this seems like a conflict of interest, if I'm not mistaken, about the fact that you still have somebody running a political party while technically is in a primary, if I'm not mistaken. Travis, maybe you can tell me. I think some Tillis consultants have, honestly, I saw the other day an article about them recruiting somebody to potentially run against him. I don't know if you've heard anything about that, but I think it's kind of interesting that even through the grassroots grapevines of the Republican Party across the state, they're not happy with Donald Trump's pick to be their next U.S. Senate candidate.
well, and I mean, unhappiness among Republicans that they stay quiet about is pretty common these days, right? I mean, let's be honest here. There are plenty of Republicans who will tell you privately they don't like this, that, or the other in the age of Trump, but they don't necessarily say so publicly or act on it because to act on it is to lose in a lot of cases. And in the worst cases, to just get cut off at the knees by the president, who clearly, does not take criticism well, particularly from inside his own party. This Senate race is going to be quite a doozy, and I haven't really seen a lot yet, but it's so early. I guess I've gone from saying, when's Roy Cooper going to get in? Sure, it's getting late. When's he going to get in? To now saying, it's early. I don't need to pay attention to that. I don't know why anybody's talking about it. So there you are. My first hypocrisy of the podcast.
Right. Well, I think, at this point in the race, everybody's just raising money, whether it's in
Yeah.
D.C. or whether it's in North Carolina.
No,
Anderson
we're
says no.
raising volunteers here. And at least
Okay.
for the Democratic Party perspective, Trump's DOJ coming in and suing our state board of elections to purge the voter rolls of 113,000 people across North Carolina who are already registered to vote. That's going to make them vote a provisional ballot if they don't, quote unquote, fix, right, their voter registration that they've got. Our party's doing a volunteer call on August the 25th with Governor Cooper and with Justice Nina Earls, trying to access and tell people about about that right now and what's going on. We're doing phone banks every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday out to those voters. We're talking to people right now and going to be doing canvasses throughout September to those challenged voters. It's gone down from about 113,000 people to about 80,000 people now in the state that need to fix their voter registration forms. But that is still a very big thing right now. I keep telling people the election has already started and Republicans are trying to utilize everything in their toolbox to be able to say, we're going to disenfranchise voters. We're going to make it harder to vote. We're going to lessen the polling locations across North Carolina with the county boards of elections switching over to Republicans that we've had. They're busy, to be honest with y'all, and so are we. And I think that it's sort of like the duck analogy that you see of like people's feet are kicking below that water right now, because I think that everything we do in 2025 is what's going to set us up for 2026.
Yeah. I mean, and starting early is crucial. It's so, that's what you got to do. And I was actually thinking the other day, there's talk about something like 700 million or more being spent between Watley and Cooper and all the dark money groups that'll come to bear in this election. Boy, wouldn't it be great if we set some of that money aside for something else? Even if it was some sort of bipartisan problem-solving group, so that we're going to tackle one thing, we're going to tackle one problem that we don't think our politics is going to tackle, and we're going to throw money at that. Or if you want to take it to just a specific party for the Democrats, boy, I know you're laying groundwork every day, Anderson, but the groundwork that really needs to be laid, if there's any hope of taking back the General Assembly, is pretty significant. And I just can't believe that we need to spend that much money on a United States Senate race, as opposed to some of these other priorities, including other political priorities.
Look, no fault here on that argument. I think that everybody, regardless of political affiliation right now, would agree with you that we need campaign finance reform. And I wish Republicans that hold a trifecta in Washington, D.C. right now, and also hold both legislative chambers in North Carolina, would take it seriously and say, we need to get big money out of politics and stop taking checks from Duke Energy that are $100,000 in order to raise people's energy rates and steal elections from our Supreme Court race last election cycle. But, Travis, I just don't think that's on Republicans' priority list right now. And unfortunately, I think that until we get Democrats in office that care about campaign finance reform, which I do because I've seen the fact that we waste millions and millions of dollars trying to out-add each other, right, every election cycle instead of actually focusing on grassroots priorities. But the reality is that elections cost a lot of money right now with the systems that we have in place. And we need people that arguably just want to go up there and change the systems, but also care about doing it here at home too in Raleigh. So I agree with you.
Well, there is diminishing returns. I mean, there's no question that you saturate the electorate at some point, and the money that you're spending, it no longer has the marginal effect that you need it to have to win an election in a state like North Carolina. And the problem is nobody's willing to take that gamble that, maybe 200 million is enough to do what we need to do. Maybe we should put another 150 million of it into some sort of grassroots operation that benefits people down the ballot.
If you're a down ballot candidate, though. You look at Justice Allison Riggs winning a statewide election last year with 734 votes, and that race was not a $3 billion presidential race like we saw, or the amount of money that was invested in North Carolina from just the presidential race. I mean, it was a $5 to $8 million fight, but it was not the 80 to 70 or $70 to $80 million fight that we're seeing right now play out with top of ticket races. And a lot of that goes to show you can win statewide races, I think, by spending money effectively and efficiently enough. But you also have to be able to get a message out there to voters in a way that reaches them. And I think that that's been one of our biggest problems, which is also why you see the fact that you've got to spend so much money for people to actually hear you in elections and understand what you're running on.
Yeah. Well, I'm deeply skeptical that ad money has the effect that people think it has.
Now, Thomas, I'm not gonna lie to y'all though. As somebody who's been traveling around this state, everywhere I get asked on a rural tour stop, somebody looks at me and goes, where are the Democrats pushing back on television ads right now from Americans for Prosperity? Where are the Democrats? And it's like, you're not hearing us because we're not on your TV screens. We don't have the money right now to do that. And so I agree with y'all in the principle of it, right? Of that, like, it feels like wasting money to some degree. But then you actually are out there in a field right now hearing from folks that are like, I'm seeing in Wake County right now, Americans for Prosperity are hitting Don Davis every day. And it's like Democrats are silent. And so that to me, it's effective because it's making my own voter base right now think that we're not being as as pushback as we want to be. And I'm like, no, it's just the fact that Republicans are outspending Democrats right now in independent expenditures and PAC spending by 8-to-1 margins at this point in time. And that is what's happening across the country. They've got billionaire machines behind them. And it's not just stopping with the presidential election. It's keeping up consistently because they know they need to be messaging year round. And that's our party's problem to me right now is that we don't have, and this sounds bad, right? But I'm like, we don't have enough big money coming in to be able to push back and let people hear what Democrats are doing. And it is creating a problem. And for me, that's where I look at folks and I say, the party's got to be the ground war. We cannot be the air war. Candidates have to be the air war. We have got to be the folks that are boots on the ground in communities that are helping people find that voting location and that are doing that voter education for down ballot races, to Travis's point earlier, because you're not going to have some of those legislative candidates right be able to have the type of money that top of ticket races do, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
my job as a party chair is to try to get more of that money at the top of the ticket, honestly, into those down ballot races and help make sure that we're working in a coordinated fashion, which we say that every election cycle, I know, and I know that y'all know that best too.
Well,
And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
well, I
ahead,
was
Jeff.
just going to put kind of an exclamation point on what Anderson said about the money. You're actually the third Democrat who operates kind of at a statewide level that I've talked to in the last 2 or 3 weeks who said we just don't have the money. We just don't have the money. And these are separate groups. This is not someone from within the Democratic Party I'm talking about. So there may be I hesitate to call it a donor problem on the Democratic side, but these large tranches of money that the Republicans seem to be able to dig into. I, Maybe there has been a shift and it's not as readily available on the Democratic side.
I mean, well, also we're just depressed, right? Like and I don't think it's people expected it to last as long as it had, but there is a lot of resentment towards spending $3 billion on a presidential election and not winning it. But I'm like, we don't take our powder and go home, guys. Like
Right.
we still have elections to fight and people that are like fascist in the White House right now. And for me, it's helping Democratic donors understand where the best places to put your money are. And I think that for a long time, they have done a lot of different things with it. And so for me, I'm trying to make the case of that the state party has a role to play in both candidate recruitment and also infrastructure building. And we're the infrastructure that the candidates drive their cars on, and you don't want potholes in your roads right now. And so I think that that's sort of the mindset that we've been able, at least North Carolina Dems, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I consider ourselves privileged in every way because I'm like, we are the third largest state party in the country right now, other than other than states that have like coordinated campaigns going on in them, looking at New Jersey and Virginia. And I'm like, that's been a lot for us to keep on, along with a $3 million court fight for our Supreme Court election this year. And we've raised more money in an off year than we've raised before. And I think that that's also important tell for like the direction of the state. It's not as much money, though, right now to me as Republicans are putting up against us. And it's just, I see that big picture. And I'm even looking at the RNC versus DNC cash on hand right now, 80 million versus 15 million. And I'm just like, that screams trouble to me in so many cases. And I think that we got to get serious about talking about it.
Yeah, I think a point Travis made. I think we have a donor problem. I don't think we have a donor class that is as sophisticated or committed as the Republican donor class. I mean, if we raise $3 billion for a presidential race, money's not the problem. We have the money. It's just we're not spending it very smart. And I would argue that the ads early right now are probably having some marginal effect more than a lot of the ads they're going to spend in the last 2 months of the election after everybody's invested. I mean, by the time you get to the election day, or even by the time early voting starts, the number of voters you're actually chasing is tiny. And yet the amount of money that you're spending on them is huge. And it's just, I've seen research that says early ads don't have much impact. I'm not sure I believe that
If
exactly.
that were true, Republicans wouldn't be winning elections. They
Right.
have been priming voters for
It,
honestly for
it's
years,
the
right? Like,
it's the idea that the conversation never stops. And we have this idea that, okay, well, the conversation's over now. We'll start it again when the election begins. They never stop.
mm.
And they have this ecosystem that keeps it going all the way. So the ads are really supplementing what they're saying on talk radio, what they're saying on all that stuff that we don't really have very much of. So anyhow,
So
we
if you're a
spent more time
Democratic
on this.
donor
What's that?
listening to this right now, right? What we need is your time, your energy, and your dollars, in
Yeah,
case that you were wondering.
right.
And the best place to give, right, is your local county party or your local state party, in my opinion.
Right. Well, let's switch gears a little bit because there's a lot going on outside of North Carolina, but I feel like it kind of started here in North Carolina, and what we're seeing in Texas and possibly California versus Texas on gerrymandering is really possibly going to shape Congress after the 2026 election. And we, as everybody knows, have been front and center of the redistricting gerrymander wars for 30 years. We've literally been in the court system since the 80s here, really kicked in the 90s, but we just keep having these redistricting problems. And right now we have what is clearly an undemocratic district system. When you can have an evenly divided state and Republicans hold a 10-4 majority in congressional districts, and we know who's going to win the districts for the most part before the election ever happens. That's not democracy. And the same with the General Assembly, where they've got almost veto-proof majorities in one house and veto-proof majorities in the other, and yet a relatively divided electorate. That's not democracy. It's certainly not what the founding fathers had in mind when they built this system. They saw a system of competition. It's always cracked me up that Republicans, well, I don't know if they believe in competition anymore or not. I mean, competition's one of those values they chunked with every other value when they decided to get in bed with a convicted felon. But they used to always say competition fixes everything. We need competition in schools. We need competition here. We need competition. Where we don't need competition in elections. It's like, come on, guys. But Travis, are you up to speed on what's going on in Texas and California right now?
I don't have the chapter and verse, but Republicans are looking to gerrymander further, maybe Texas, so that because they're afraid they're going to lose control of the House of Representatives, and they think they can pick up several seats in Texas by moving the election lines. California is responding by basically saying, if you do that, we're a Democratic-controlled state, we'll do it too, except they've got, I think, a constitutional amendment. They have to get voter approval, though, because they have nonpartisan redistricting over there. So it's kind of this kind of potential to be an escalating redistricting war. And I mean, Thomas, you mentioned it, like we're used to like over and over redistricting again in North Carolina. So there it is, our gift to the nation. I hate to see it. I can't tell Democrats, particularly in California, oh no, you should unilaterally disarm and let Republicans do what they will in Texas. But at the same time, if you want to be the good guy, you got to act like the good guy. And my hope is that Texas Republicans do what sometimes people will call a dummy mander. It's where you get a little too cute and you draw the lines and you think, oh, we're gonna make the margins, instead of a district that a Republican will win by 15 points, we're gonna make it that we'll make 3 districts so they win by 5. Sometimes you lose elections that way. I don't know that that's going to happen, but that would be my preferred outcome, because when people try to exercise tenets of what I would call bad government, I like to see them lose. Doesn't happen as often as I'd like.
I was about to say that, Travis.
Yeah.
I think the part that Travis left out is that Greg Abbott forced a special session of their state legislature in order to do this, and under the guise, right, of flooding relief for Central Texas, because they had victims who had been through natural disaster in the region of the state, right? And I think that what we're looking at was a similarity with North Carolina, too, when you see Republicans utilizing and politicizing natural disasters to actually steal political power away from voters, or also away from people that voters just elected into office, looking at what Republicans did in December of last year with Senate Bill 382 and stripping away the power of our governor and our Democratic attorney general that had both just gotten elected by the voters of North Carolina on the same ticket that they did elect Donald Trump under, right? From having the powers of appointing our Board of Elections and also being able to sue the state legislature under any bills that they deem unconstitutional. And what we also saw was obviously Gavin Newsom coming back at that. What I want to paint for people in the picture of this is, okay, so to Travis's point, right, I don't agree with gerrymandering. I think it's bad regardless of which political party is doing it, but I do think it's necessary for California to meet Texas mano a mano, right? And they're going to. Where, though, in the entire country, right, could you expand the map for Democrats when you're looking at sort of this fight happening? And it looks like going through our Supreme Court, because it is what gerrymandered our state to begin with in the first place, right? So North Carolina having the ability to take back our Supreme Court for the Democratic Party in 2028 in our state means that we can give 4 more House of Representative seats, right, back to the Democratic Party by 2030. I want us to have a trifecta, and I want us to come in as Democrats and pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and say, actually, we're going to get rid of this shit altogether across the board. But in the interim time frame, I do think that we've got to play politics as politics is being played out in front of our eyes right now. And that means giving people the understanding of there's a long-term strategy to end racial and partisan gerrymandering at a federal level, but we have got to be able to get there in a congressional map first. And that's exactly what Republicans are trying to restrict us from doing right now by having, and honestly, they're trying to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't lose majority of the House of Representatives in 2026 or beyond that, but looking at actually how does a political party gain power? And it's through this state. They lost it through this state, and they'll gain it through this state again, too.
I agree with you, Anderson. I don't believe you can disarm. I mean, I feel naive in we went through about 15 years, 20 years of Democrats, progressives pushing for nonpartisan redistricting commissions. We got them passed in a lot of states. Even a couple of Republican-leaning states passed them. But the reality of it is these cutthroat Republicans, they had no interest in good government. It was all about power. And I think that's what we've learned over the last decade and a half is that power is the only thing that matters to them. And they were never going to move towards, I think there was a sense that if we start this trend of moving towards nonpartisan redistricting, that it'll catch fire and we'll see that take effect in states across the nation, and it didn't. Instead, what we had is what you see in Texas. They will do whatever they can to hold power. And really what they're doing is eliminating democracy. That's what's so bad about it. And so if we got to do the same thing, we got to do the same thing. And I don't, we can't take a knife to a gunfight anymore. And if it's got to be a bunch of other states that we do it, have at it.
But
I
we
don't
only
care
do it
anymore.
up until we have federal policy that can
Right.
actually be a blanket right over states.
They're
Because what we're
clearly,
seeing is that
yes.
Republicans in individual states are utilizing that power that they are then gaining through gerrymandered legislatures, through the fact that you've got state Supreme Courts that are able to back up those gerrymandered legislatures. And I think that Democrats need to understand, because we don't want to eradicate democracy. We're the party that's pro-democracy. But I think that we're a party that's got to have a strategy of how do you actually gain back political power. And I think that's what we're looking at, is saying there's a time frame where we know we can pass federal legislation to do X, Y, or Z, make elections free and fair. And we've had that bill sitting in Congress for the last 4 years. I mean, like, it's been something that you've seen Democratic presidents champion every time they run for office, but it's just not something that we've had the power in Congress to be able to enact. And I just, at least in my lifetime, I will tell y'all that one, but I'm just like, we do have the ability to, and I think that's the picture we've got to paint for our party right now, too, to get people energized of saying, yeah, we want to do this back to them, but we also understand the importance of free and fair and competitive elections. Like, I'm a Democrat that wants to compete. I'm like,
Yeah.
Republicans, give me 7 and 7 again. Let's go mano a mano for it for a minute and just see who comes out of that alive. But
Right.
yeah.
I want to go back to the world where, we used to always have at least 4 or 5 competitive congressional elections in North Carolina, all through the 80s and 90s, even into the 2000s. And Republicans complain about Democrats gerrymandering, but it was never like this. It was never where it just totally lopsided one way or the other, to the extreme that it is now. But I will say this. I'm pretty pessimistic that the Supreme Court would ever let any sort of nonpartisan redistricting bill pass Congress, because they would say the Constitution says it's the rights of the states.
Well, and nonpartisan redistricting is not a magic wand by any means. I mean, the bottom line is the people with the power to draw these districts and to make any other decisions in our society have to be just and fair. And,
Right.
internally, they have to just do it because it's the right thing to do. And one of the things that we've seen in the Trump years, and I'm not going to say it began with him, but I think it really accelerated with him, is just this, not only this willingness to overstep the norms, to ignore norms, the kind of the unwritten rules that we all live by, but the understanding that there really aren't that many consequences to it. And that when you start to think about that way, and you start to extrapolate it out, it really takes you to a bad place real fast.
It does.
And it's real hard to go backwards on it too, because of the conversation like we're having. Like, there's no way for us to do right unless we get power first. And, it just, that's one of the things I really bemoan about the time that we're in is we just are in this situation where we all feel like we have to fight fire with fire, and we've lost this idea of one country, where, yeah, you may get me today and I might get you tomorrow, but we're all kind of trying to go the same general direction, as opposed to I'm just gonna just going to cut the other side if I can. And I would, I'm not pretending I have an answer. I guess I'll just be sad about it.
I was about to say, I think we're in depressing times, Travis Vane, and we're going to get out of them. That's what I believe.
I hope so. And some of it, to be fair, I think some of the reason that we feel like we're in depressing times is because you can know just about anything you want to right now. And that hasn't always been the case, where you could just bombard yourself with the news of the day, which is by the definition of news a lot of times going to be negative. There's who's the guy that wrote, I think his name is Heinlein, but basically he said that the biggest cause of psychosis in the world is the ability to know what's happening everywhere all at once. And we've made that a reality. It was a science fiction book that I've just butchered the quote on.
It's a good quote.
But I think he's right. It just, if you know everything, you just become, you are overcome by the noise. And no one can live that way. So, I don't know. As soon as you finish this podcast, everybody, put down your phone and don't consume any other information.
Travis, go outside.
Well,
read a book.
Touch grass,
read that
right?
science fiction book.
Touch grass, right? Yeah.
Let's move on to what I feel like is the funniest thing that's happened this summer in politics. And it's Gavin Newsom. The guy, he's not my favorite guy. I just as a political candidate, he's not a guy I was that fond of. But the fact that he is fighting back, I always thought Gavin Newsom looked like he was just a hair too ambitious. But man, he has laid into Trump, and he's been parroting Trump's most absurd social media. And the thing that cracked me up is I thought, to me, it was so blatantly obvious he was just mimicking Trump. But the conservatives missed it. They didn't get that he was parodying Trump. They thought that it was something real. They were like criticizing him for like, well, he can't make that claim. I'm like, he's not making that claim. He's just mocking your guy. Can't you see that? But what hit me was they don't see that that's what their guy does. They're willing to turn their backs and not look at everything awful that Donald Trump does because they get their little thing. If you're a tax and spend guy or a tax and regulation guy, you get tax cuts and no regulations, you'll turn your back on troops in D.C. If your thing is abortion, as long as he's going to, appoint anti-abortion Supreme Court justices, you don't care how many kids are starving. They will give anything. They will turn their back on anything because they do not have any self-awareness, and they don't have they are a huge single issue party. Everybody's got their little thing, and they will trade. They would sell their mothers to get that one thing. And they do it with Trump. They've sold the country down the river for whatever that one thing is that they want. And Gavin Newsom is sticking it to them, and they're too damn stupid to see it. That's my take.
I don't know that I agree.
Thomas take. That's not an Anderson Clayton take, but I appreciate the sentiment, Thomas.
I think there's probably some areas I'd quibble with there, but I don't feel the need to go point by point. I will say, though, that the passion of the single issue voters, as you put it, for some of those people, the single issue was, I don't like what Democrats are offering. And that's something that the party just continues to grapple with far too long after the 2024 elections. The hangover on this one has not been a healthy one for Democrats, from what I can see. Y'all might need some more therapy.
Nationally. I need someone to say nationally in this room right now. I don't know. I'm like, I think we've done pretty fine in North Carolina, to be real with you. But
yeah, I should be watching us.
I think everybody should know that I think the world of Anderson and that I a lot of what you're doing I think is really strong, and so that let that be a baseline in the conversation here. But
y'all can't have me on a podcast and y'all gonna hit my own party right now while I'm sitting on here.
As relates to Gavin Newsom, I kind of you know, but here's the question, because this is all online. It's memes, it's tweets. What do you get out of that? And you probably get something at some point, but like I've never really understood the terms of, owning someone online. Like what does that really lead to,
You know what?
particularly when you're doing it as a backlash?
An Uber driver this morning for me looking at me and going, "Y'all heard about that Gavin Newsom? Like, he's pulling up some punches. Like, I think he'll be the 2028 nominee." Didn't know any of the other governors that I asked him about.
Interesting. So it's attention. That's what you get, I guess,
And
which
Well,
is the currency of the realm.
you know what you
amongst the
get?
base, like, that's where
Right.
I'm like, our party has been screaming, like, "We wanna see a fighter, we wanna see a fighter,"
Exactly.
and it's like, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, give us. I don't think I don't know if Gavin Newsom's going to be the nominee or not. It doesn't really matter at this point. We need somebody to go out there and mock these people who have an idiot as we got a guy who is an embarrassment as president of the United States. I mean, the Europeans cannot get over the fact that we elected this guy. And they're watching him get owned by Putin over and over and over again. He makes idle threats in foreign policy. He's made us a weaker country. He's made us he is a laughing stock. And he's president of the United States, and the Republicans are defending him. At least somebody out there is mocking the guy. He needs to be mocked. And it's like, if you can get people, and back to one other thing you said, Travis, where you said there are a lot of people who just didn't like what the Democrats are doing. Those are the people whose votes are really up for grabs. And as long as they keep disliking what the Democrats are offering, we're in trouble. But the fact that they don't necessarily like what Donald Trump's doing is an opportunity for us to shine a light on that guy and make fun of him and make them go, yeah, maybe they're as bad as the Democrats. And I hate to win something because we're the lesser evil, but I'll take a lesser evil when a guy like Donald Trump is president and winning some of those voters while we figure out how the hell we're going to win them back. Because I firmly believe this. Democrats are better for them, whether they realize it or not. They offer better policies. They offer family-friendly policies. They offer policies that create jobs. They offer policies that move the country forward. They do not destroy institutions like the Republicans do. They do not put troops on the ground in our cities and threaten our people and make the rest of the country go, what makes you better than any other tin-pot dictator? So, if we can make those people realize what a fool our president is, maybe they'll turn and say, we can't vote for him again. Maybe they don't vote for Democrats, but maybe they say, I'm not voting for a Republican either. And that's progress.
Right?
Sorry.
I think you said it, brother. I think you said it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, we've had a good run. I feel like this was an interesting conversation here. And we'll try to get back in a couple of weeks. What do you think?
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's keep this thing running. We'll be back in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll hope that more stuff is happening as we move into the school year, which I believe that we start when school starts as politics goes. Maybe it's Labor Day, but basically the fall things start to get more interesting. We're going to start to see candidates emerge. I think we got some pretty strong candidates that we didn't discuss this time that we can talk about next time. I think 2026 is going to be an exciting election year. Our biggest challenge, I believe, is going to be making sure we have a fair election. But let's get back together. I really appreciate it, Anderson. I appreciate it, Travis. Hope you guys have a good few weeks, and thanks for being here. This is Thomas Mills signing off for Politics NC.